Values and attributes. In our last session, we discussed about what is an object and what is the class and how to represent the class diagrams. In today's session, we will discuss about what are values and attributes. So, value is a piece of data. Attribute is a named property of a class that describes a value held by each object of the class. So, value means it is a data, it is a piece of data, whereas attributes means it is a named property. Here, we can use the analogy that object is to class as value is to attribute. So we shall see in detail by taking an example of attributes and values. Example for attributes we can give as name, birth date, and weight. Whereas for values, Joe Smith, 21st October 1983, 64 of person object. So we shall see in detail with the help of a figure. So see the figure given over there. First figure shows you a class with the attributes. Your person is a class, whereas name and birth date are the attributes. These attributes will be represented in the second compartment of the class, whereas the class name we write in the first compartment. The second compartment gives you the attributes. So this is the class with the attributes. The attributes are name and birth date. Your name is having some data, that is it can hold any person name. Likewise, birth date is also having some data, that is called as value. You can observe here, name is having some data. So that is Joe Smith. Whereas birth date is having some data, that is 21st October 1983. So name and birth date are the attributes, whereas Joe Smith, it is a value for that name. That is, it is a value for the attribute. So name is an attribute and Joe Smith is a value. That is, it is a piece of data. Similarly, birth date is an attribute. Whereas 21st October 1983, it is a piece of data. Means it is a value. So name and birth date are the attributes. Joe Smith and 21st October 1983, these are values. So it is represented over here on the this figure, we call it as the objects with the values. So your object is Joe Smith, person is a class name. So similarly, Mary Sharp is an object, whereas person is a class. Similarly, your name and birth date are the attributes, and Mary Sharp is the data for the attribute that we call it as a value. So Mary Sharp is a value, and 16th March 1950 is a value for birth date. So this is how we represent values and attributes. So in glance, values and attributes. Value is a piece of data. Attribute is a named property of a class that describes a value held by each object of the class. So we can give analogy that object is to class as value is to attribute. Example for attributes here is name, birth date, weight. Whereas example for values, Joe Smith, 21st October 1983, 64. So it is a weight. Okay, 64, it is nothing but weight of the person. Next, below figure shows you what are attributes and what are values. So person is a class, so it is a class with the attributes name and birth date. So name and birth date are the attributes in the class person. So name, it holds some value, that is we call that is it is a string data, whereas birth date, it holds a date. Then coming to this figure, Joe Smith is an object, person is a class, and name and birth date are the attributes. So these attributes are having some data that we call as the values. So Joe Smith and 21st October 1983, these are the values. Similarly, in the Mary Sharp and person. So Mary Sharp is an object, whereas person is a class name, and name and birth date are the attributes. Mary Sharp and 16th March 1950, these are the values. So here you can observe that the attributes are mentioned in the second compartment of the diagram. So in the first compartment, what is that? Class name, object name and the class name is represented over here, whereas second compartment consists of the attributes. So we got an idea about what are values and attributes now. In next class, we shall see what are operations and methods and how to represent those operations and methods. Thank you.